By the Maharal of Prague, the great Kabbalist, Devorim Gdolim Einam B'Mikra. Great things don't just happen to occur. Something significant that occurs, there's a divine plan. And it's exactly perfectly orchestrated to turn out the way it does. So if this week's Torah portion of Tazria Mitzorah is read on the Shabbos, that's the first day of the month of Iyar, clearly there's a connection. There's a connection between these parshios, these Torah portions, and the month of Iyar. And not just that, specifically this year. Not every year do the two fall out the same day. Many years, Tazria Mitzorah are read around the beginning of the month of Iyar. But for it to fall out exactly on the first day of Iyar, the day we're reading these two Torah portions, tells us there's some deeper message here. Let's explore what I think is a very deep and relevant message. So this is our 6th week of being on lockdown, being in quarantine. And we've discussed the messages of different parshios and as they relate to what we're going through right now. The quarantine started right after Purim. Purim was the time of Lech Knossos Kol Yehudim, gather in all the Jews, bring them all together. The parsha we read right after Purim was the parsha Kitisa. Kitisa talks about the Ada, the unit, the nation as a whole, as unified. Then we went to Parshas Vayakel, the gathering of the Jews. And then everything switched at Pekudei. Pekudei suddenly was the time that each Jew counted as an individual. And we went, as many have explained, from Vayakel to Pekudei, we go from the Avodas HaKlal, the service of the nation as a whole, to Avodas HaYochid, the service of each individual. Each individual's personal Judaism and personal relationship with Hashem and with the others and with themselves. The next few parshios, we learned about the karbonos of the Yochid, the offerings brought in the temple by the individual. And then we come to Tazria Mitzorah. Tazria Mitzorah, we learn about a spiritual ailment called tsaras, a spiritual ailment that comes upon a person who has spoken Lashon Hara, who has ripped apart families and ripped people away from each other. And as a result, the person experiences this illness that the remedy for it is Bodod Yeshev, Michutz Lamachan Moshovo. The person has to sit alone outside the encampment, outside the community, by themselves. And the Torah tells us, how do we identify, how do we diagnose this spiritual ailment, and how do we deal with it? How do we help the person go through a process which brings atonement and cure? And after this lengthy discussion that takes the entire parsha of Tazria practically, and a good part of Mitzorah, the last verse that discusses, the last pasuk that discusses this ailment says, Lahoros b'yom hatomei v'yom hatorah, to instruct, to guide, on the day of spiritual impurity and the day of purity, Zos Torah Satzaras. This is the Torah, the instructions of Tzaras, of this spiritual ailment. You know, the Torah could end by saying, this is everything you need to know. The Torah says a few verses earlier, Zos HaTorah l'kol nega tzaras v'nosek. This is the Torah of all these ailments. Why does the Torah have to say, finally at the end, to instruct on a day of impurity and a day of purity? This is the Torah of tzaras. What's the Torah telling us here? And surely many commentaries are bothered by this. Perhaps we could understand as follows. The word lahoros, to instruct, is connected to the word Torah. As the Maharal explains elsewhere, Torah is a book of instruction. It's a guidebook for life. It's instructions how to live your life, how to maximize what we're here for, how to live our purpose. The Netziv, one of the great commentators on the Torah, explains in last week's Parsha that one of the ways, there are many ways people can experience joy in their life. Some people find joy in life through having a few l'chaims, going out drinking with their friends. A deeper way to feel joy is to study Torah. Study of Torah gives you clarity that's exhilarating, gives you a sense of purpose, gives you inspiration that brings joy to you. I remember many years ago, a small story I'll tell you about myself. I was in high school, and as many of us had experienced in our teenage years, something happened. I don't even remember what happened, but I fell into one of those really nasty moods. I don't remember if I got enough to fight with my parents or my parents called me out on something, or I wanted something and they said no, or they want me to do something and I didn't want to do it. Whatever it was, I stormed out of the house. Where am I going to go? Being a yeshiva student who also happened to have a major exam on a number of pages of Talmud that I had studied coming up, I had no choice. I went to shul, I went to synagogue, I went to study. I needed to study for the exam, and also I loved Torah study. And I remember the experience of sitting there studying the Gemara, studying the Talmud. And one of the primary commentators on the Gemara is Tosfos. Tosfos is a commentary on the side of the page, and to understand a question of Tosfos and an answer and how he's understanding the Gemara and that what's changing as a result of the question is a truly deep, thought-provoking experience. And I remember studying a few lines of Tosfos again and again, and finally I got it. Suddenly I had that clarity. And I was like, ah. And all that anger and all that frustration just melted away. Lahoros, the instruction of Torah brings joy. Like some people feel it through other ways to alter their experiences. Torah does that on a whole higher level. Lahoros bayama tameh. The day of tameh. Tuma, spiritual impurity, is the antithesis, is the opposite of kedusha, it's the opposite of holiness. To be holy means I'm removed from mundane matters in this world. I'm separate for a higher purpose. I'm not just like everybody else because I have a higher purpose. Now, sometimes tuma is when I forget that and I start living a life of what is not holy, what is mundane. I get involved in that which I shouldn't. I look at things I shouldn't. I do things I shouldn't. I eat things I shouldn't. Things that represent the lack of holiness. That's one level of being tameh. Another level of being tameh is being antithetical to who God is. Not being godlike. To be godlike is to be kind, is to be thoughtful, is to be selfless, is to be spiritual, is to be purposeful. And if I live a life where whether I'm indulging or whether I'm just ungodlike, whether I'm narcissistic, whether I'm self-centered, whether I'm hurting others, whether I'm not doing for others, whether I'm putting myself before others, I'm also not being godlike. The Mitzorah, the one Hatzaras, is in a certain sense, the example of the one who's being antithetical to God, a person who's living a life of tumah. But many of us could do it in our own ways. I figured you out. Yeah, you. I figured you out. When you stop returning my calls? When you stop returning my texts, you stop showing to shul, suddenly you don't have time to study. And you'll tell me things when I finally corner you, Rabbi, I'm slammed at work. I'm so busy. I got so much going on. They need me at home. Sometimes it's legitimate excuses, but I know when it's not. I know when things are going on. And I know that maybe you're engaging in things you're not proud of. Maybe you're not living a godlike life. Maybe the holiness in your life is weak. Maybe you're involved in thoughts or looking at things or doing things that you're not proud of. And it's not comfortable to come to shul where you confront yourself with the two parts of yourself. Or maybe it's not comfortable to sit across from the rabbi and have to look him in the eye. So suddenly you get busy. And I understand it because I'm there too in my life. I also struggle with these things. We all struggle in our own way, with our own examples, with our own circumstances, but we all fall into the Yom Tameh, the day of impurity, the day, whatever it is, the day of Tumah means to be closed up, to not be receptive to spirituality, to not let the light of God come in you, not let the Or Hashem, that spirituality come into you. Yom HaTameh, the day of being closed up spiritually. What do you do on that day, Lahoros? You study Torah. You open a book of Torah. You open a Gemara. You open a Chumash. You open whatever it is, a book of Torah, and you let the wisdom of Torah and the light of Torah permeate you and open you again so that you're open to connecting to Hashem and to living that life and transforming. How do you bring the joy in the day of darkness, in the day of shame, where, the Yetzer Hara, the negative side within us, gets us? When we fall, the first ploy the Yetzer Hara gets us is to forget about meaning in life and just go ahead, do whatever you want. And then when you start getting sensitive and you start thinking about spirituality, the next step is he gets you to become too ambitious. You know what? I've got all these goals, and I'm going to become a spiritual person. I'm going to keep all these mitzvahs, and I'm going to do a study Torah X amount a day, and I'm going to come to shul daily, and so on. One of my students told me recently, he's Rabbi, I miss shul so much that when it opens up, I'm going to be there every day. And I said, don't come every day. Come twice a week. Because if you commit to coming every day, you're not going to come at all. It's too much. The Yetzer Hara wants you to commit to every day so that you won't do it at all. Because what happens is he gets you to overcommit, and as soon as you fall, which we all fall very quickly when we overcommit, then it's forget it. You feel that sense of shame. I can't do it. I'm embarrassed. Or I did even worse. It got me to go into negative places I haven't gone to before. And then I feel that sense of shame. Lahoros biyom atami. On a day of Tumah, on a day of that spiritual impurity, what do? Lahoros, I study Torah. Torah is going to get me connected again. But now let's go deeper. We said that this week's Torah portions are connected, the Parshiot are connected to the month of Iyar. Many have explained that the word Iyar, that's spelled Aleph Yud Resh, is connected is an acronym for Ani Hashem Rofecha. I am God, your healer, the one who heals you. So let's understand. On the one level, we're all praying for everybody who's sick from this terrible virus should be healed quickly, and everyone should stay healthy. On a deeper level, Hashem doesn't just heal us on a physical level, on a spiritual level, on an emotional level, on a psychological level. He heals us on all these levels. But now, the zodiac sign for the month of Iyar is a shor, is a Taurus, is an ox, a bull. The ox represents hard work. Hard work. The ox works in the field, plowing in the field. One step after another step after another step. What's unique about the month of Iyar is that every day in the month of Iyar, we say a special bracha. We count the Omer every day during the month of Iyar. There's a mitzvah every day, and it's a counting, a distinct counting. In other words, what that represents is each one of us have to count. You can't say, well, the rabbi's counting the Omer, that covers for all of us. Or at shul, the chazan, the one leading services, counts, that covers for all of us. No. Each one of us has to count. We each have our avodah sayochad, our personal avodah. Right now, we're stuck at home. We can't go to shul. And you know what happens? I have to daven for myself. I can't rely on somebody else, on anything else, on the tzibur, on the community. It's up to me personally. I have my work that I have to do. Pesach, the mystics explained, was an experience of what's called the Sarusa de Le'ela. It was awakening from above. Spiritually, we were not ready for the incredible experience of being taken out of Egypt. But Hashem in His kindness did all the work for us. The month of Iyar is, okay, Hashem says, now you start. Now you do the work. You saw, it's like being put on the proverbial mountaintop and seeing the exhilarating feeling of climbing the mountain. And then Hashem says, okay, now climb it. Climb it. That's Iyar. Iyar is one step after another. But what do we want to accomplish in the month of Iyar with that counting? With that counting and that work, one step after another step, is I want the travel, the journey that I'm going on during the month of Iyar is a journey deep into myself, deep into who I am and the greatness that I have within myself, and the Torah that I can study and I can understand and that can use to guide myself in my own unique way. The Zohar teaches us, and the book of Tanya explains, the Hasidic master, the Baal Tanya explains, that there are two levels in the service of Hashem in our spiritual development. There's a level when we have to grapple with our Yetzer Hara, grapple with the negativity within us, where you can achieve the first level is the level of iskafia, where I subjugate my Yetzer Hara, I force him down. It's like I tie him down. My Yetzer Hara wants me to get to look at things inappropriate. I make a deal with myself, I'm not going to look at certain things. My Yetzer Hara wants to get me to speak Lashon Hara, I'm going to control my tongue. A lot of behavioral modification, a lot of behavioral control. I'm focusing on my behaviors, what I'm not going to do. I'm not going to go there, I'm not going to look there, I'm not going to say that, I'm not going to do that. I'm subjugating my Yetzer Hara, but that's not the end goal. The end goal is hafcha, where I want to transform my Yetzer Hara. My Yetzer Hara, my negative side, becomes positive. I use the force and the passion and the drive of the negativity, the cunningness of the negative within me, I use that for the positive. That's where I want to get to. I want to transform. The shore, the Taurus, the ox that represents the physicality, I want to turn that into something spiritual. I want to turn that into something meaningful. I'm transforming. And based on that, we can understand that, first of all, the month of Iyar, we're going to be challenged. Every day this month, starting Shabbos, you're going to find unique challenges in your life. Somebody getting you angry, a temptation doing something inappropriate, not wanting to connect spiritually. Each one of us in our own way, and each day it may be different. There's nothing wrong that you're having those challenges, and there's nothing wrong that you fall most of the time. Just don't give up. Realize there's nothing wrong. This is your opportunity. Maybe 25 of the days this coming month you won't take the opportunity, but 5 you will. Just take a step forward. There's nothing wrong with you. Don't get into the world of shame. Get into the world of reflection. What can I do a little different? How can I improve myself? What can I take on? What's something small? Something inspirational? What can I do? But now, let's go back to the verse. Let's go back to the pasuk. Lahoros b'yom hatomei of Yom HaTorah, to teach, to discipline, to educate. On the day of Tumah, through Torah, I take the day of Tumah, the day of negativity, of darkness, and what do? B'yom HaTorah, I transform it to a day of purity, a day of shining light. Torah doesn't just mean purity, it means to shine. I take the darkness and that which is closed up within me and I transform it into a Yom Tar, a day of shining, dazzling light. That's what I do if I grapple with the negative within me and I'm able to ishafra, to transform it. Maybe not completely, of course not completely, but one step, one aspect, one detail. And then what do I end with? Zos Torahs HaTzaras. This is the Torah of Tzaras. Tzaras, this incredibly negative spiritual element, turns into Torah when I deal with it properly. Becomes something positive. So what that means for us is take the next day until Shabbos and think about, what can I work on this month? What's that character trait that I can work on that's uniquely challenging me or is a unique opportunity for me to grow in because of my circumstance right now? Because I'm home. If I'm home alone, maybe I have to deal with that sense of sadness or forlorn or boredom. And maybe then I could take a book of Torah and study and engage my mind. And engage my mind with that simcha, with the joy of Torah. Or maybe I'm stuck home with my family and they're driving me nuts. I can't get anything done. And my challenge is not to spend 2 hours a night studying Torah. It's to retain my sense of equilibrium and my balance. And enjoy being there with the family. And sneak away for 3 minutes of Torah study when things are quiet. Maybe it's not giving up completely on the Kinyan Masechta if you're part of our group. Maybe it's studying the 48 ways of Noah Weinberg or something on the Torah portion. Something. But realize you have an opportunity to grow, and the unique opportunity is coming from our unprecedented circumstances right now. Find a way to grow with that. Find an aspect of Torah. Find an aspect of a mitzvah. And if we do that, we'll be truly living with the times. We'll truly be taking Lahoros, the Torah, to transform the Yom HaTamei, the day of spiritual closed upness, make it into a Yom HaTorah, a day of spiritual dazzling light. Zos Torahs HaTzaras. That's the Torah of Tzaras. That's the opportunity we have. Chevra, I miss each and every one of you. And it brings me incredible joy when you call me, or when I see you on a Zoom class, or when you come by to visit from the distance on Shabbos, or I go by and I see you from the distance. I love each of you. And my bracha is, let's take this week's Torah portion. Let's take the month of Iyar and let's grow. Let's grow in our own way. Let's grow in Torah. Let's grow in our spiritual growth. Let's grow in our thoughtfulness of somebody else, whether the thoughtfulness is being kind to your spouse or your children, whether it's being kind to somebody who's forgotten about and just give them a phone call or drop by a gift for them, whatever it is. But let's use this month to transform ourselves. Let's use, as a student of mine texted me a few weeks ago, he said, coronavirus, disaster or opportunity? Let's take the disaster and make it into an opportunity. Good Shabbos and good Chodesh.